We're going to move on now to the chaos, confusion, and anger growing in the wake of President Trump's immigration ban. Protests all across the country, reaction from around the world after the president signed his executive order late Friday. ABC's Cecilia Vega has all the latest from the White House. Good morning, Cecilia.
And George, good morning to you. That chaos and confusion is still going at this hour. The president is making good on a campaign promise with this one. He says this is not a Muslim ban, but so many of those protesters all around the country see it very differently. Overnight outrage from coast to coast. In Boston, thousands packing the streets. Officers in riot gear in Portland. In Seattle, police pepper spraying an angry crowd. From the shadow of the Statue of Liberty to the gates of the White House. Refugees are welcome here. A weekend of protests over President Trump's immigration crackdown. That order signed Friday, leading to instant chaos and confusion at airports at home and around the world. Travelers not allowed to board flights bound for the U.S., some including children detained upon landing. Others pulled off airplanes before takeoff, like this family in Cairo. Now returning to Iraq, Fuad Sharif had received a visa because he'd risked his life working with the U.S. government.
I don't know what to do because I sold my house. I quit my job. My wife quit her job, and kids left school.
The White House apparently now walking back part of that sweeping edict, now saying green card holders, permanent legal residents, will not be barred from re-entering the country. But it does ban Syrian refugees from entering the U.S. indefinitely. It puts a 120-day stop on all other refugees, and it also issues a 90-day ban on nearly all travelers from 7 predominantly Muslim countries: Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. The order grants some exceptions, giving priority to refugees from religious minorities like Christians living in those majority Muslim countries. Emergency court rulings blocking parts of the ban, preventing authorities from deporting some travelers. Outside airports, tears. This mother in Virginia reunited with her 5-year-old son. The president defending the order.
It's not a Muslim ban. You see it at the airports, you see it all over. It's working out very nicely.
And amid the chaos, issuing a statement saying, this is not about religion, this is about terror and keeping our country safe. There are over 40 different countries worldwide that are majority Muslim that are not affected by this order. And lawyers worked all night to release these detainees, and we have just learned from a Department of Homeland Security official that there are now no longer any people being held at airports. Amy, that information just coming into us.
All right, Cecilia, thank you. And President Trump facing political fallout on both sides of the aisle for his immigration crackdown. Members of his own party criticizing that decision. Our chief global affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz joins us now with the latest on all of that. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, AB. The reaction here at home and around the world was swift, strong, and at times emotional. Overnight, the White House digging in its heels after a weekend of criticism following President Trump's executive order.
Big stuff.
Banning entry into the U.S. from 7 majority Muslim countries. Republican Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham writing in a joint statement, "It is clear from the confusion at our airports across the nation that President Trump's executive order was not properly vetted. Ultimately, we fear this executive order will become a self-inflicted wound in the fight against terrorism." President Trump firing back on Twitter. John McCain and Lindsey Graham should focus their energies on ISIS, illegal immigration, and border security instead of always looking to start World War III. Republican John Kasich, another former presidential candidate, also chiming in, telling the Washington Post the executive order was ham-handed and that Trump was ill-served by his staff. But those across the aisle offering a harsher opinion.
This executive order was mean-spirited and un-American, and it will only serve to embolden and inspire those around the globe who will do us harm.
And across the ocean, British Prime Minister Theresa May's office saying, "We do not agree with this kind of approach, and it is not one we will be taking." And in Germany, leader Angela Merkel reportedly reminding President Trump in a weekend call that the international community is required to take in war refugees on humanitarian grounds. And later today, Democrat leaders, including Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, will hold an event outside the Supreme Court calling on President Trump to reverse, quote, his recent hateful anti-refugee and anti-immigrant executive orders. Amy?
And Martha, there are reports this morning that even the heads of Homeland Security and the Defense Department Secretaries Kelly and Mattis did not have a heads up about this order.
Well, sources told our Homeland Security reporter that senior level officials at DHS did not have meaningful warning of the details, and Defense Secretary Mattis, who would not have a role in implementing the executive order, was there for the signing of the executive order, but we're told he knew few of the details. But he will certainly have to deal with the fallout. And this morning, Amy, the Iraqi parliament has approved reciprocity measures after Trump's travel ban to apply for Americans entering Iraq.
All
Amy?
right. Martha, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, a lot to talk to with the President's counselor, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, thank you for joining us this morning. You just heard Martha's piece right there. Criticism also coming in from the Republican chair of the House Homeland Security Committee, Mike McCall, saying that this should have been better coordinated. We have to do this in a way that doesn't undermine our nation's credibility. You have the Republican chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Mr. Corker, also saying this was poorly implemented. Revisions must be made. So are revisions coming?
Well, the president made very clear last night, George, what this does and what it does not do. And let's really focus on that, because I see all these protesters. I think if you actually surveyed them, they would probably get the facts wrong. They're being misinformed. This is 7 countries. These countries were identified by President Obama. President Trump is merely following President Obama's lead on state-sponsored terrorist countries where they have a history of training and exporting and harboring terrorists.
Kellyanne, let me just stop you right there, because President Obama did not institute an order about banning travel from these 7 countries. Also, your executive order, the president's executive order, references 9/11 several times. 2 points. None of the deadly terror attacks in this country since 9/11 have been carried out by anyone from those 7 countries. Point number 2, 18 of the 19 9/11 attackers came from Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates. There is no ban from that country. Those countries also happen to be countries where President Trump has significant business interests. So why weren't those countries included?
2 points in response, George. One is that President Obama certainly had a ban on the Iraqi refugee program for 6 months, which is double the time that's contemplated under President Trump's executive order. His is 90 days or 3 months. President Obama had it for 6 months, banning the Iraqi refugee program. Why did people not protest that? I have an idea, because it was never covered in the press. If you ask the people who are protesting outside these airports, what is different here from the Iraqi ban in 2011, put forth by their hero, President Obama, they wouldn't know what you were talking about, because it was never covered, let alone protested.
Well,
Imagine, and to the second point, since you asked me 2 points, I'll answer it. People need to be reminded what this is about. And 9/11 is the example that is still most raw and most fresh to many people about what a president's first responsibility is to keep the people of this country safe. This is temporary. It is narrowly prescribed. As your own reporting just said, George, there is not a single person still being detained, apparently. That's ABC News' reporting. The 170 legal permanent residents who requested waivers yesterday got each of them. 170 requested, 170 granted. So people are protesting things. Imagine if they had put all these tear-filled senators, these senators with bullhorns. Imagine if they had protested outside VA hospitals when our veterans were dying, waiting for care. Imagine if they cared about the homeless they walk by every single day in New York and Washington. Where's the protest on that?
Kellyanne, just on your first point, and I want to move on from that. When you talk about Iraq, that temporary ban was put in for increased vetting after 2 Iraqi nationals were identified as possibly being involved with making IEDs in Iraq. And there was actual substantial coverage at the time. But I do want to move on, because the president had responded to Senators McCain and Graham last night as well, saying that they should focus their energies on ISIS, illegal immigration, and border security instead of always looking to start World War III. How are Senators McCain and Graham looking to start World War III?
Well, the first part of the tweet is really instructive and operative, George. It's like, we have a lot to do, and we want Republican senators, both of whom pursued the presidency themselves, we want them to be there for this president, to support him, especially when he is trying to keep our people safe. And he's basically saying to people, you know, you protested my nomination, you protested my candidacy, you protested my election, you protested my inauguration, you protested the day after the inauguration, you're protesting the executive order, you're protesting. How about this cooperation and collaboration, this quote bipartisanship that we're always talking about? The only person doing that is President Trump.
Those are Republican senators, Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham, and the president said they are looking to start World War III.
And he's wondering out loud, George, in the first part of that tweet, why they don't invest their energies into the real problems we have. Problems that, by the way, existed for all the years and decades these folks have been in the House and the Senate. I mean, Donald Trump has been on the job for, what, 8, 9, 10 days? Barack Obama was here for 8 years. The extraordinary accomplishments in just the first week truly are breathtaking. Today, today or tomorrow, this week, he'll appoint his. He'll talk about who he's nominating to the United States Supreme Court. He'll meet with small business leaders. He'll sign additional executive orders. We would like Republican senators and Democratic senators to really look at what this particular executive order that's temporary and narrowly prescribed provides and respond accordingly, not respond to what they think it provides. They can call the White House, they can come and visit, they can get a full briefing if they like, but people in this town like to react first and think second. That's not the way businessmen do their work.
We're just about out of time. It's really just a yes or no question. Does the president believe that those two senators are looking to start World War III?
You can read his tweet, but read the full tweet. Don't cherry pick it the way the media like to do these days, respectfully, George. No reductive curating reporting, in my view, is helpful to the American public to understand. What the president said is, here's a list of things where I can really use your help, instead of always looking for an argument, always getting in the way of this Republican president. We want to work with all the senators, regardless of their political affiliation, but that has to go both ways. He's been very open to working with people. We had Democratic senators in last week, meeting with him, talking about a range of issues. He's been to Capitol Hill. Vice President Pence has been to Capitol Hill. We're being very collaborative and very opening. We would just like the same in return, and we like the facts out there so people don't turn to violence and aren't misinformed about what this executive order provides, and more importantly, what it does not provide.
Kellyanne Conway, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And as we've been reporting, several federal lawsuits have already been filed in multiple states challenging the president's travel ban. So let's bring in our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams. So Dan, tell us where this executive order stands right now as far as the courts are concerned.
So all that's been issued are what are called stays around the country from federal district court judges who are basically saying you can't implement parts of it which suggest, for example, that people who have valid paperwork who were in the air or then held in detention centers have to be released, have to be allowed into the country for now. But a stay is just temporary. It is not a ruling on the ultimate merits of the case, and that's going to come later. There are going to be all sorts of challenges, but keep in mind, the president has enormous discretion when it comes to immigration, so these cases are not going to be easy.
All right, Dan, I know you'll be keeping your eye on it. Thank you.
A lot of other news coming as well. I want to bring in John Karl, our chief White House correspondent. And John, it appears that the president may name a Supreme Court nominee today?
I'm told it could come as soon as this afternoon, George, if not tomorrow. And I'm told it is down to 2 names on the very short list. The first, and the one I would call the clear frontrunner, is Judge Neil Gorsuch of the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. He is somebody who is 49 years old, was confirmed unanimously when Bush appointed him to that role back in 2006. And he's been known or called Scalia 2.0 because not only is he conservative like former Justice Scalia, but he also has that kind of flair with his writing style. The other one on the list, I am told, is Judge Thomas Hardiman of the 3rd Circuit Court of Appeals, 51 years old, somebody who serves with President Trump's sister, Judge Marion Barry, Trump Barry. And by the way, I'm told that the president's sister likes Hardiman.
Okay, that could be important. John Karl, thanks very much.
All right, saw some snow there at the White House. Ginger's got a look at the weather.
And a lot of snow in Cleveland, Ohio, and areas south and east, 6 to 10 inches overnight. Look at this video. One of the accidents